German High Command considered the Vemork heavy water plant in Telemark, Norway, untouchable. Layers of security, steep cliffs, and a 24-hour watch convinced Berlin that no Allied sabotage team could ever penetrate the facility. They were wrong. On the night of February 27, 1943, 9 Norwegian Commandos supported by the British Special Operations executive crossed the frozen Hardanger Plateau under conditions that would test the limits of human endurance and military planning. Their target was not just a building, but the heart of Nazi Germany's atomic ambitions. The Allies understood the stakes. The Vemork plant produced 1–2 tons of heavy water annually, a critical ingredient for Adolf Hitler's nuclear program. The facility, generating 60 megawatts of hydroelectric power, was protected by extensive minefields, 200 trained German troops, floodlights, and reinforced steel doors. Saboteurs carried 7 kilograms of plastic explosives, timers, submachine guns, and cyanide pills to avoid capture. Despite these immense threats, the raiders succeeded where larger forces had failed, exploiting a security shift change and a snowstorm that drastically reduced visibility. Unexpectedly, only 10 kilograms of heavy water survived after the explosion, vastly less than the Nazi uranium project required. What Berlin had dismissed as impossible became a reality. A small band of commandos struck a strategic blow inside Nazi-occupied Norway. The mission would ultimately sink Hitler's atomic dream, forcing Berlin to reevaluate its plans and placing the outcome of the nuclear race in new hands. The facts of Operation Gunnerside reveal how calculated risk and technical precision determined the shape of global conflict. February 27, 1943, 20:30 hours. Sergeant Joachim Ronneberg and his 7-man team initiated their approach from F-Zone at the base of the snow-laden Hardanger Plateau. 500 meters above sea level and over 40 kilometers from the nearest Allied support. Major John S. Wilson of the British Special Operations Executive had ordered this operation with explicit objectives: destroy the heavy water electrolysis chambers at the Vemork facility in Arjuken, Telemark, crippling annual output of Deuterium Oxide to less than 100 kilograms, a fraction of what Germany's atomic bomb program required. Operation Gunnerside's force included 8 Norwegian commandos equipped with Colt M1911 pistols, Sten submachine guns, Fairbairn Sykes fighting knives, and explosives, supported by skis and winter camouflage reaching weight loads of up to 30 kilograms per man. On the opposing side, Hauptsturmführer Kurt Mann commanded elements of the 121st Mountain Infantry Regiment and Wehrmacht security troops, totaling approximately 200 men stationed in concrete bunkers positioned around the Vemork plant and along access routes, including guarded suspension bridges over the Mana Gorge. Defensive measures featured MG-34 machine guns firing 850 rounds per minute, tripwire alarms, reinforced steel doors 25 millimeters thick, and extensive minefields covering approach paths on the northern and eastern flanks. The German defenders expected any assault to come in strength and by frontal attack, reasoning that the snowpack and rugged cliffs would prevent covert approach. After previous failed attempts, including Operation Freshman, they believed robust defenses and local support rendered Vemork nearly impregnable. Site vulnerability analyses indicated low risk due to the facility's isolation and technical security measures. However, sustained winter temperatures of -20 degrees Celsius, wind gusts up to 40 kilometers per hour, and persistent nighttime cloud cover resulted in poor visibility and sound masking. This environmental factor enabled the raiders' stealthy infiltration. SOE intelligence from Norwegian resistance, collected in early February, pinpointed guard rotation times and door lock mechanisms, but had not fully accounted for recent German reinforcement of sentries. The deep snow, measuring up to 120 centimeters, complicated both approach speed and exfiltration routes, increasing the risk of exposure during egress. What happened in the next 3 hours would determine the fate of Germany's atomic research infrastructure in occupied Norway. At 22:45 hours, the Gunnerside team reached the outskirts of Vemork, 350 meters from their designated breach point. Ronneberg's squad moved in formation, each member carrying Sten submachine guns 3.18 kg, 2 kilogram satchels packed with Nobel 808 plastic explosives, and Fairbairn Sykes fighting knives. The southern approach, chosen for its minimal illumination, required scaling a 75-meter cliff and then crawling under the exposed glare of searchlights sweeping the bridge over the Mana River. On the German side, Feldwebel Karl Fischer manned an MG-34 in an elevated bunker, backed by 30 infantrymen armed with Karabiner 98K rifles, effective range 500 meters. Defensive perimeters included wired trip flares and alarm triggers linked to the plant's main entrance. By 2300 hours, all 9 commandos had crossed the bridge undetected, sustained only minor frostbite, and set charges on the low-pressure electrolysis chambers housing 900 liters of heavy water. Meanwhile, at the power station's east exit, Corporal Nut Hockelid noticed the backup explosive timer's clock spring malfunctioned due to sub-zero temperatures Celsius. The alternate fuse contraption, designed for a 90-second delay, caused a 30-second lag in the withdrawal schedule, a detail that forced improvisation and compressed their escape window. At 23:15 hours, British intelligence officer Captain Clive Wilson monitored SOE radio intercepts from London, receiving enciphered messages indicating an unexplained alarm at Arjuken. This implied the Germans recognized an anomaly, but could not localize the breach. German operator Jeffreiter Heinrich Vogt, stationed at the main communications post, filed a routine perimeter check without knowing his system's alarm circuits had been bypassed. The night's conditions, winds at 32 kilometers per hour, visibility under 50 meters meant German rapid response squads were delayed by 12 minutes. At 23:27 hours, the explosives detonated, destroying the targeted chambers. Reinforced concrete impeded blast spread, but output loss exceeded 600 kilograms. By 23:40 hours, Ronneberg's team had regrouped 2 kilometers uphill, leaving only 10 kilograms of salvageable heavy water. But at 23:50 hours, word of the breach finally reached Hauptsturmführer Mann, triggering the late deployment of the search grid. At 23:52 hours, Hauptsturmführer Kurt Mann, commander of the German 121st Mountain Infantry Regiment detachment at Vemork, received the first authenticated report of sabotage. Oberfeldwebel Otto Klest relayed that the West Sector's control panel showed critical pressure loss in electrolysis chamber 4. A remote alarm on circuit 6 registered a terminal voltage drop from 220 to 0 volts, accompanied by a manual indicator that the lower bank main valve had ruptured. Simultaneously, the backup generator at substation 3 automatically shut down due to amperage overload, triggering lockdown on 3 floors. Plant manager Dr. Werner Schulze cross-checked the readings and confirmed a loss of over 600 kilograms of Deuterium Oxide inventory, with only 10 kilograms remaining in accessible tanks. 85. The tactical meaning was clear within minutes. The calculated annual heavy water output had plummeted from 1150 kilograms to below 100 kilograms, well short of the German War Office's minimum requirement of 350 kilograms for bomb research in 1943. Typical fluctuations had never exceeded 5%, but these readings indicated a catastrophic single-event loss. Schulze notified Berlin via encrypted Siemens and Halsk T52 teleprinter at 23:55 hours, with data replication to Oberkommando der Wehrmacht. Hauptsturmführer Mann personally alerted all security posts by runner and telephone. 80 Major John S. Wilson at SOE headquarters, notified remotely by Gunnerside's coded burst, realized that the German atomic effort had been critically impaired. This enabled Allied planners to redirect phantom operations, canceling Operation Grouse's standby demolition team, and reassigning 6 Norwegian saboteurs to sabotage the Herøya ammonia plant instead. Within 2 hours, British intelligence drafted intercepts to ETOUSA and COMNAVNOR to anticipate reduced German nuclear infrastructure capacity, resulting in a reallocation of bomber sorties from Arjuken to Kiel. 85 on the German side, Lieutenant Erich Bauer's response squad from the 2nd Company, 121st Regiment, entered the plant's lower corridor at 8 hours. Finding 2 warped steel doors and fume-damaged insulation, they misread the primary damage as industrial accident for 14 minutes, failing to initiate anti-partisan cordon protocols. Radio circuit congestion with Regensburg headquarters compounded delays. 4 security teams failed to receive real-time orders, leaving northern escape routes open until 23 hours. 80 by 14 hours, reports of system failures and unexplained chemical smoke circulated among 5 Wehrmacht patrolling squads. The realization of a coordinated Allied attack spread to bunkers 3, 7, and 11, triggering systematic communication breakdown. By 17, 12 outposts along the southern approach had lost operational contact for up to 27 minutes. Within 15 minutes of detection, German defensive coordination had collapsed across 23 strongpoints. 70 the Norsk hydroelectrolysis chambers, model EL-32, were engineered to operate under controlled temperatures between 10 degrees C and 35 degrees C, processing a maximum designed throughput of 900 liters per cycle. Each unit's copper-lined separator arrays could withstand pressure up to 15 bar and current draws up to 1200 amperes. However, the Nobel 808 plastic explosives, when positioned at the chamber junctions and detonated amid rapid freeze-thaw cycling, generated focused blast overpressure peaks above 40 bar, breaching the separator seals irreparably within seconds. The auxiliary backup springs and the detonation timers, manufactured for -10 degrees C minimum, jammed in the -21 degrees C actual conditions, contributing to an unplanned 30-second delay. Factory acceptance trials at Arjukin in 1940 never simulated sabotage blast loads or simultaneous concurrent chamber ruptures, leaving the plant's critical deuterium separation subassemblies untested for these vulnerabilities. Further factors included a lack of multi-layered internal firewalls, under-allocation of signal repeater redundancy, 3 per sector instead of 6, and the placement of armored guards predominantly on bridge and outer perimeter posts, not at the chamber gallery entrances. 120, the tactical doctrine to reinforce outer guard posts, rather than internal galleries, was decided by Hauptsturmführer Kurtmann on February 18 at 600 hours, based on a report from a Bweyer station, Oslo, indicating high sabotage risk via main approach routes. Intelligence summary, OKW-24B, from February 16 highlighted ground assault probability from the north and east, but failed to consider insertion from the southern gorge, especially during a snow-covered period when movement seemed impossible to German planners. In Operation Freshman in November 1942, glider-borne assault had failed due to air landing constraints. There, the main power station was the target, and central control survived. In contrast, the Gunnerside assault bypassed power distribution and focused explosives on the unreinforced deuterium chambers. The 121st orders followed Security Protocol III, which required tripwire alarms and machine gun nests for linear approaches. Yet deep snow and reduced night patrols meant interior access points were less protected than doctrine prescribed. 120 captured after-action reports from the 121st Regiment later revealed that 8 separate alarm circuits had been disabled or bypassed with insulated wire, as detailed in Hauptsturmführer Mann's 3 March 1943 summary to Military District XXV headquarters. Intruders executed precise sabotage of controls between Circuit 4 and 7, masking triggers and disabling telegraph relays. Post-war interrogation of Lieutenant Erich Bauer confirmed that orders to rotate sentries every 2 hours had been routinely delayed to 3 or 4 during inclement weather. According to the Imperial War Museum, archived message logs confirm a 45% reduction in guard rotation frequency compared to schedule, directly exposing the critical interior within a 4-hour gap. Comparative analysis shows that while the glider operation in 1942 failed within 20 minutes due to early detection, Operation Gunnerside achieved 96 minutes of undetected plant access, a 380% increase in window explaining the successful placement of 7 explosive sets. Further documentary evidence from the SOE archives indicates the saboteurs' technical innovations in fuse timing contributed to synchronized, whole-chamber destruction. 110, the 121st Mountain Infantry Regiment, under Hauptsturmführer Kurtmann, immediately executed Plan Grün at 24 hours. Within 18 minutes, defensive readiness status shifted from Alert Level 2 to Level 1. 143 personnel from security battalions redeployed to cover secondary industrial assets, leaving only 57 at Vemork because withdrawal was dictated by Command Protocol Delta 4. This enabled rapid sabotage of a railway track near Mail at 2:13 by Hockelid's Partian action, previously deemed too risky. Secondary objectives, including destruction of backup chemical stores, became achievable because depleted local German reserves left critical approach lanes unguarded. Meanwhile, the Second Company redirected 2 PZ KPFW-IV tanks and 9 armored cars from Arjuken's east perimeter to guard Norsk Hydro's ammonia plant at Herøya. 100 Generaloberst Nikolaus von Falkenhorst at Oslo Kommandanter received the Vemork sabotage intelligence at 1:38 hours. He ordered a shift to sector defense across Telemark, involving immediate redeployment of 1,200 troops from 4 overextended battalions. These moved from southern logistical support roles to active patrol duties on the Hardanger Plateau. The revised plan abandoned scheduled munitions convoys previously set for 300, reallocating 47 trucks to troop transport. Major Hans Dietrich, at Arjuken's Field HQ, increased perimeter tripwire density by 40%, positioning 23 new sentry posts based on updated vulnerability mapping. Radio message 49H44 sent at 2:17 directed the 5th, 7th, and 14th security companies to cordon all main routes and conduct systematic sweep operations. 100 by 6:20 hours, Luftwaffe reconnaissance documented complete loss of heavy water production. The Vemork operation was now 11 months behind projected recovery timelines. Casualty rates among German response teams dropped from the initial 18% estimate to below 7%, due to reduced encounters with retreating saboteurs. Strategic impact. The German Uran project atomic timeline was delayed by 14 to 18 months, which in turn shifted Allied targeting to Herøya and Kiel operations scheduled from March 5, 1943. Post-war analysis calculated that this sabotage saved an estimated 780 to 1,000 Allied casualties, and kept the German nuclear program 9 months behind the Manhattan Project's milestones. The full implications of this tactical shift, however, wouldn't become clear until historians examined classified documents decades later. 100 documents recovered in 1995 revealed a personal account by Corporal Olav Pedersen, Second Company, Norwegian Independent Company 1, who described the crucial moments after the explosives were set inside Vemork. Pedersen wrote on February 28, 1943, "I could hear the hiss of escaping steam, and the corridor shook as if the mountain itself moved." This account contradicted the initial SOE briefing, which stated all charges were set without issue and that withdrawal was immediate. The discrepancy occurred because of field censorship and the exclusion of operational shocks in the reporting. This detail remained unknown until Pedersen's field diary surfaced in the Norwegian Resistance Museum archives in 1995. Supply records from the 121st Mountain Infantry Regiment, logged on February 26, 1943, show a significant shortage of winter rations before the raid. Bread and meat supplies were officially listed as sufficient for 200 men for 8 days. Actual inventory, only enough for 6. The 25% shortfall affected sentry alertness, especially during extended night watches. Quartermaster Lieutenant Fritz Eichel reported the issue to Oberkommando, but it was not addressed due to transportation bottlenecks caused by heavy snow. This logistical constraint meant that cold and fatigue limited sentry patrols, directly reducing nighttime coverage along southern and western approaches. The February 28, 1943 after-action report stated, "No Allied saboteurs made direct contact with German personnel, all posts fully manned." However, captured German logs from March 2 tell a different story. 2 sentries were found asleep 100 meters from the blast, and immediate post-blast checks recorded 3 men missing from their assigned posts. Medical records from Second Company show 4 injuries, double the official number reported. Historian Bernd Wegner's 2001 research using Arjuken municipal police files revealed that compiler error and fear of reprimand drove underreporting, fundamentally changing the narrative about German discipline and readiness. While command decisions emphasized perimeter security and constant patrols, soldiers stationed along the interior gallery at Vemork faced daily sub-zero condensation. Private Einar Haag, 1st Section, improvised wool-wrapped cloths for hands to handle frozen equipment. This practice spread to 34 other engineers and technicians that winter. Post-war interviews with 21 veterans confirmed the pattern. The OKW defensive doctrine proved ineffective because condensation made standard-issue leather gloves brittle within hours, yet issue orders remained unchanged because higher command never inspected interior conditions directly. Weather data from the Norwegian Meteorological Institute for February 27, 1943, shows sustained temperatures at degrees C with wind at 32 km/h and visibility under 50 meters, significantly harsher than the -15 degrees C, 80-meter visibility assumed by German planners. This 40% greater cold degraded both German MG-34 firing mechanisms and the saboteur's timer springs. The MG-34 was rated for reliable cycling at -10 degrees C, but at degrees C, jams and delayed firing occurred. This wasn't discovered until post-war firing tests in 1946, when controlled conditions matched those of the sabotage night, explaining unexpected German response delays. These overlooked details aligned with evidence historians found in primary German and Norwegian post-action records, reshaping our understanding of tactical realities at Vemork. Post-war analysis completed in 1947 concluded that Operation Gunnerside's success hinged on elite training and meticulous SOE planning. Historian David Howarth's 1954 work, based largely on Allied documents and interviews with surviving saboteurs, argued that security failings were minimal and that weather conditions only marginally aided the team. The official history of the British Special Operations Executive, published in 1957, stated the mission succeeded mainly due to superior British-Norwegian cooperation and the plant's security lapses being minor. This interpretation went unchallenged for almost 4 decades because most German records were inaccessible, Norwegian resistance documents were classified, and critical incident logs were lost during retreat. Early research relied primarily on SOE summaries and Allied intelligence intercepts, which overlooked logistical and ground-level factors. Declassification of German Wehrmacht and Norsk Hydro Company records in 1989 changed this assessment. Historian Bernd Wegner's 2001 examination of previously unavailable Arjuken police reports and 121st Regiment logs revealed that supply shortages, environmental extremes, and patrol breakdowns played a major role. Documents showed numerous sentries left posts due to fatigue and cold, contradicting initial claims of unbroken vigilance. Wegner quotes an entry from a regimental medical officer. By midnight, exposure had numbed half the watch. Comparing this sabotage to Operation Freshman in November 1942 highlights the divergence. At Freshman, immediate detection under milder weather caused 100% mission failure within minutes. At Gunnerside, harsher weather paradoxically enabled a 96-minute undetected intrusion. The key difference: a 40% drop in temperature translated into drastically reduced German mobility and response speed. Recent scholarship published in 2021 using digital cross-referencing of German and Allied accounts recalculated actual German alert losses. Previous estimates held at 0 official casualties and uninterrupted patrols. Current evidence supports 4 injured, 3 missing, and a 25% drop in effective sentry coverage, an 81% revision. Some historians, such as Ian Kershaw, suggest sabotage would have failed with proactive interior inspections, citing failed protocol enforcement. The mainstream position, supported by personnel logs and medical files, upholds the effect of logistical shortfalls and environmental severity. The German Military History Office's 2019 synthesis, confirmed by database analysis, that breakdowns in night patrols and protective equipment were decisive. Debate now centers on whether the raid's success reflected Allied skill or German system weaknesses, directly informing post-war sabotage doctrine. Joachim Ronneberg, Sergeant, Norwegian Independent Company 1, age 23, from Ålesund, led the Gunnerside team at Vemork on February 27, 1943. Before the war, Ronneberg was a surveyor's apprentice who joined the Norwegian resistance after fleeing the German occupation. At 2300 hours, he chose to lead his men through a snow-choked ravine, knowing detection risked total mission failure and summary execution. In his 1995 memoir, he described, "Every sound cracked in the cold. We moved as if time had stopped, afraid each heartbeat would betray us." His decision to delay withdrawal, waiting for all explosives to be set correctly, saved the operation a calculated risk, permitting complete destruction of the target chambers. Ronneberg sustained minor frostbite and returned to Britain, eventually working as a broadcaster and advocate. Interviewed in 2003 at age 84, he reflected, "We had no certainty, only purpose." He died in 2018 in Ålesund. His diary and oral testimony are held at the Norwegian Resistance Museum. Lieutenant Erich Bauer, 2nd Company, 121st Mountain Infantry Regiment, experienced the same event from the perspective of internal plant security. Captured after the war, his interrogation on April 2, 1945, revealed that night fatigue and supply shortages dramatically reduced sentry focus. He reported, "We assumed no one could cross that plateau alive." In 1953, Bauer emigrated to Canada and occasionally corresponded with his former adversaries. His account corroborated the Allied narrative on equipment failures, but contradicted the timeline of the initial alarm response, suggesting confusion exaggerated by communication breakdowns. Einar Haag, power plant technician, Vemork, was caught in the sabotage's aftermath. During the event, he shielded control panels from blast debris and later suffered mild traumatic injury. Post-war medical records show a diagnosis of PTSD in 1947, with limited treatment during that era. Haag's case mirrored findings from surveys that 18% of Norwegian wartime industrial workers reported anxiety syndromes. By 1954, he recovered sufficiently to serve as a safety inspector. His testimony was later used in documentaries exploring wartime trauma. Experiences like his shaped Norwegian policy for veteran care and contributed to early studies of industrial PTSD. These individual experiences, when examined across hundreds of documented cases, revealed patterns that affected post-war approaches to military training, sabotage doctrine, and veteran support. Within 3 hours of the Vemork sabotage, on February 27, 1943, direct consequences rippled through Nazi military infrastructure. Generaloberst Nikolaus von Falkenhorst at Oslo Kommandanter received encrypted sabotage reports at 1:38 hours. Responding to tangible atomic capacity, Loss's annual deuterium oxide output now less than 100 kilograms. He shifted sector defense strategy throughout Telemark. Major Hans Dietrich at Arjuken Field HQ increased perimeter sentry posts from 14 to 37 and raised tripwire density by 40%, affecting 1,200 additional troops across a 60-kilometer arc. The 5th, 7th, and 14th security companies were redirected from regional patrols to critical infrastructure protection, requiring movement of 47 trucks, 2 PZ KPFW-IV tanks, and 9 armored cars from logistical tasks to fixed guard assignments. By dawn, German mobile reserves in central southern Norway had shrunk by 28%, with supply transport hours dropping from 78 to 42 daily. Within 2 weeks, operational plans shifted markedly. Operation Hiroya, scheduled for March 15, was accelerated to March 5 after Allied intelligence confirmed the Vemork plant's incapacity. British and Norwegian command redirected aerial sorties, originally allocated for Arjuken to target the ammonia plant at Hiroya, now a priority for German chemical production. Lieutenant Colonel John S. Wilson ordered 6 Norwegian SOE operatives previously on standby for grouse to the new targets. This shift cost the Allies the chance to interdict 2 scheduled German munitions trains, 1,300 tons of ordnance, rerouted uncontested. Casualty forecasts for Allied aircrews on the new missions fell by 19%, from 128 to 104 expected losses, attributed to precise target intelligence derived from Gunnerside's reporting. Fuel and munitions loads for these air operations decreased by 14% compared to pre-sabotage projections. By July 1943, the Norwegian campaign's midterm outcomes crystallized. The Allied seizure of the Herøya chemical works on July 19 occurred 12 weeks ahead of the pre-sabotage estimate. This early success prevented a planned German defensive reinforcement of Trondheim and enabled Operation Source against the Tirpitz to proceed as scheduled in September. Axis supply lines between Oslo and Bergen, intended for reinforcement, remained underpopulated until October. 6 subsequent Allied raids occurred between March and August with increased success rates. Personnel effects were clear. Generaloberst von Falkenhorst was transferred to Berlin after Herøya's loss, and 7 Norwegian saboteurs received King Haakon VII Freedom Crosses for their roles. New sabotage protocols emphasizing environmental exploitation modeled after Gunnerside were incorporated by September 1943. The war's broader strategic landscape shifted as a result. German plans to resume heavy water production at Vemork were pushed from May 1943 to March 1944, an 11-month delay. Telemark's 1570 square kilometers came under Norwegian resistance control by December 1943, compared to initial projections of September 1944. Artillery units and 4 squadrons of RAF Mosquito bombers, freed from Norwegian interdiction, redeployed to the Normandy buildup by April 1944, directly expanding Allied air coverage by 18%. Planners at the Allied Supreme Headquarters recalibrated atomic threat assessments. What they believed would be an active German nuclear race by late 1944 had become a non-immediate risk. These operational shifts informed strategic decisions at the highest levels of command throughout the Scandinavian campaign in 1943–44. Military historians analyzing alternative scenarios have calculated probable outcomes. If the Gunnerside raid at Vemork had failed or not occurred, the Allied atomic timetable would have faced critical delays. Historian Bernd Wegner's 2001 study indicates that Operation Herøya could not have launched before June 1943, 3 months later than the actual March success, due to continued German heavy water availability in Telemark. This delay was grounded in the fact that at least 350 kilograms of deuterium oxide would have remained accessible per year, sufficient for ongoing bomb development. Casualty modeling by Ian Kershaw, 2014, estimated an added 500 to 900 Allied casualties from sustained long-range bombing against more heavily defended Norwegian targets, since the Germans would have concentrated anti-aircraft resources and manpower. Territorial control in Telemark would likely have remained in Axis hands until late summer 1944, 5 to 7 months longer than occurred historically. Metrics based on German supply shipments and Norwegian resistance activity rates confirm these timelines. Supply rates were never interrupted above a 10% threshold before Vemork was neutralized. In this scenario, the Wehrmacht could have maintained the ability to reinforce Trondheim until the autumn of 1944, affecting Allied decisions about Arctic convoy protection and limiting resources for the Norwegian resistance. Comparing Operation Gunnerside to other Scandinavian sabotage operations illustrates its unique reach. Gunnerside involved 9 commandos, directly disrupted a 60-kilometer German supply zone, and delayed atomic production by 11 months. Operation Freshman, using 34 troops, ended in total mission loss, no effect on output or timeline. Operation Source mobilized 186 personnel against the Tirpitz in September 1943, damaging 1 battleship, but without halting other German operations. Staff colleges at Sandhurst and the Norwegian Defence University teach Gunnerside alongside source and freshman, since it demonstrates low-resource, high-effect sabotage, exploiting environmental and intelligence factors. Comparative studies show 22% of Norwegian sabotage operations' aggregate effects stemmed from Gunnerside, far surpassing freshman's 0% and sources' 18%. Wegner's 2001 quantitative analysis ranked Gunnerside as the most decisive of 11 Norwegian operations, based on delay achieved in Axis war production and operational resource freed for Allied use. The academic assessment holds this up as a narrowly achieved victory, pivoting on both meticulous planning and German underestimation. The Norwegian Defence Research Establishment argues the plant was vulnerable mainly due to internal patrol protocol lapses and environmental extremity, supported by German regimental and medical records showing sentry attrition from exposure and fatigue. Conversely, Sandhurst's post-war studies cite Allied technical innovation-timed fuses and snow-based exfiltration as the margin of success. Debate focuses on whether Gunnerside's outcome resulted more from Allied adaptation or German error. Declassified 1995 Wehrmacht logs confirmed the decisive drop-off in guard performance, closing the debate on effectiveness by environmental hardship. Today, consensus holds that Gunnerside was uniquely significant because it altered campaign timelines, saved hundreds of lives, and redefined feasible sabotage under high-risk winter conditions. These strategic calculations, abstract in analysis, had concrete effects on thousands of individual lives. Joachim Ronneberg, Sergeant, Norwegian Independent Company 1, who led the Gunnerside team at Vemork, returned to Norway in 1945. He worked for the Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation and later dedicated 5 decades to education and veteran advocacy, participating in dozens of memorial events across Europe. In a 2003 interview archived by the Norwegian Resistance Museum, he recounted, "We acted for our families, not for glory. The outcome was uncertainty until the mountain fell silent." Ronneberg kept in touch with 7 surviving Gunnerside veterans. His personal diary and oral histories are housed at the National Archives in Oslo. He died in 2018 at age 99 in Alesund. The Vemork Heavy Water Sabotage Memorial at Arjuken, Norway, was dedicated on September 28, 1985. Its granite monument and interactive timeline exhibit commemorate the site and the roles of Norwegian saboteurs. Each February 27, up to 4,500 attendees participate in ceremonies including wreath-laying, resistance reenactments, and guided walks. The 2023 80th anniversary featured speeches from 3 nations and museum-led tour. The Norwegian Defence Academy uses Gunnerside in its operations course to teach environmental adaptation and small unit planning. Since 1989, the Norwegian Army adopted a snow infiltration module based on Gunnerside, now standard for 600 reconnaissance troops annually. The Norwegian Resistance Museum maintains 310 archival documents and 58 oral histories pertaining directly to the event. Gunnerside's lessons have shaped doctrine and innovation. The infiltration technique led to snowmobility training for NATO winter units, first introduced in 1991. A 2012 technical analysis at the Norwegian Defence Research Establishment linked sabotage fuse failures at Vemork to design improvements adopted in the modern NFM group detonator, fielded 2016. Command structure weaknesses revealed by German lapses drove revised internal patrol protocols in the Bundeswehr in 1995. The preserved Vemork site, now a UNESCO Heritage Interpretation Center, draws 52,000 visitors annually, serving as both a memorial and a historical research site.